Hello, all you skibbies. This is Great Answer, and I am here with your scene name according to FetLife is Zaphod.
Yep.
But you only have one head, so I am not positive that you want to use that name or not.
Zaphod or Randall's fine. I'm pretty
okay. Cool. And we are, through the miracle of Skype, talking over hundreds of miles away and bringing it to you here on the Ropecast. The Ropecast has been brought to you by people like Lee Allure of LeeAllure.com, who does hypnosis of the erotic variety and others, as well as doing amazing little soap as a sideline, Spiral Eye Soap. Who knew that hypnosis and soap would go together so well? And of course, I feel a little weird because you also make rope and stuff like that, but this podcast has also been supported by Twisted Monk, who makes great rope and also is a great person. And as a great person, I would also say that he has never been anything less than encouraging to other rope makers and stuff like that. I think some of that is him wanting to see other people succeed, and some of it is him sitting up there going, I know exactly how hard it is to be successful at this. Good luck, buddy. You know, that kind of thing. So we can certainly talk about things like that, and don't hesitate to pimp your own rope in this situation as well, because I think that Monk is doing just fine.
Where he's at now is like what I would like to be at in like 5 years.
Uh-huh.
And you know how well he has everything put together, his marketing.
Yes.
It's like an inspiration.
The guy provides his employees with paid vacation and benefits. I mean, that's almost unheard of in any. It's unheard of in a lot of businesses, much less a kink business. So,
yeah, I've heard nothing but great stuff about him.
Yeah. Between him and Mike Blacksmith are my patronuses as far as businesses go. So let's talk about you. You are living out there you don't have to say exactly where you live if you don't want to, but roughly speaking, you are in the western segment of the country, but not the far western segment. So you kind of have an in-between community there. Do you want to talk about what it's like?
Well, I mean, I'm fine. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
Yeah, the general kink community, it's huge. And then there still isn't like a lot going on. You know, there's like a couple of big kink events that are like more public, like a fetish ball type of thing. There's one dungeon in town that does a lot of amazing stuff. They have there's probably 20 or 30 things going on there every week.
Wow.
Yeah. And then there's like a handful of like smaller groups, house parties, coffees, that kind of thing. Yeah. And like everything that I've seen and researched, like we're one of the largest kink communities in the country. We're in like the top 5 or 6, but don't for some reason have like a lot of the clubs or activities like you would find in like LA or New York or San Francisco. Just isn't.
Is the political climate friendly or unfriendly towards that? I mean, like for example, I would have thought that I thought that Las Vegas would be totally friendly to bondage. Turns out, nope. You actually can't show nipples and can't even tie people up in the city. So
yeah, I've done tying in public and like had cops come by and ask me like what I'm up to, and as soon as they realize that everything's cool, they're like, oh, okay, cool, have fun, and just walk.
That's nice.
But they've been covered. You know, they're pretty strict on like what you can show in public. Also, one of the topics of discussion around here is pretty much any form of BDSM here is technically illegal.
One of those places, yes.
Yeah.
No, not able to consent to battery, as they often say. Yeah, well, that's got to be a little frustrating.
Eh,
So how did you end up, did you get into the rope scene there, or did you get into your rope another somewhere else and then end up moving there?
oh no, I've been here about 14 years now. I think it was about 10 years ago I first caught the Naughty Boys videos.
Ah, yes.
A girlfriend of mine at the time was really into it. Um, and then I think it was 8 or 9 years ago I first came into the actual scene here and saw a guy doing, shibari, was fascinated, asked him to show me how to do it. He refused. So I just started picking it up on my own. And, I was lucky at the time, shortly after I came into the scene, this conference Restrained was happening here.
Yes.
And, I managed to go to all four of those and actually, get the opportunity to learn from other people, like different techniques and like how to do things safely and stuff like that.
Out of curiosity, I mean, you don't have to say who it was, but I'm curious as to the nature of the refusal to teach you. Was it a I don't teach, or was it a you're not worthy, or like what kind of a thing?
I think it was more I wasn't a 5'2", 95-pound blonde, so he didn't have the time.
Oh, so he was a feminist who wanted to make sure that more women got involved in topping in the scene. I see. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he's a great guy. I still see him around today,
yeah,
and then at the big events and stuff. But
no, I get you. I mean, there's nothing that says you have to teach people. I was just curious about the quality of that. Cool. So you used the word shibari. Does that mean? But you also said Naughty Boys. So I tend to think of those as being two very different styles.
Yes.
Which did you gravitate towards one, or just try a smorgasbord of everything?
When I was starting out, I pretty much would just throw rope on anybody that would stand still long enough and consent to it. And I probably did that for like my first year or two in the scene. And at that point, it was just a mishmash. I was still working with the 3/8 nylon that I got from Home Depot. I was still figuring out like how to tie a harness the same way twice. The usual, like, getting the hang of like how all this works and stuff. I've definitely gravitated much more towards, I want to put like heavy air quotes around traditional style. I've really,
Traditional as in Japanese
yes.
style. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And like the only time I use nylon now is if it's requested. I've got some knothead nylon that I picked up at the last Restrained that we had, and that stuff's amazing, and I'm probably never going to get rid of it. But it's not requested that often either. So.
Yeah, I remember the first time I tied organic hemp on my partners at the time, who had loved the nylon that I was using up to. That was rainbow rope back then. And they were like, please never put that nylon on me again. Like literally, they were like, no, never again. Just put it away. I still have some, but yeah. And I got to say, it's as nice now as it was, 16 years ago when I first got it. But it just, people like the organic stuff.
Yep. Yeah, especially once it's broken in. So, if it's been oiled up right, or even just, like running it over people, getting the use in, getting it broken in, it's like almost as soft. And it just,
yeah,
the feel of it.
I noticed I was looking on your profile because I actually did some prep for this podcast. I know people who are listening, try not to be too shocked. I like the fact that when you talk about when you are doing your public play, or not public play, but when you're sort of the rope guy, letting people do try out things, that you are just doing rope, and you set a very specific boundary of please do not grope me, please do not do that kind of thing. What prompted that? I mean, are you suffering from an excessive groping at the time, or?
It's there's a decent amount of crossover here between the kink and the swinger scene.
Oh, okay.
And some of the parties I go to, there's a lot of crossover in that. And, they're coming from that scene. They've never tried rope before. They want to. There's been a couple of times here in the last 6 months or so where I've basically been tying and doing the Neo bullet dodge from the Matrix because they're thinking, oh, we're doing stuff, so we're doing all the stuff. And they don't quite get that it's a no until it's asked. And
how could it be a no? You're a guy. It's a swinger event. What could
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll do respect for swingers with they have their own models of consent, and that is all good for them. It does not work for me at all.
No, it doesn't work for me either. And that's even with communicating this is what we're doing. I'm very big on you have your box. I'll put rope in the box. That's all that goes in the box. But they're not. With them, it's taking stuff out of the box instead of putting it in, I think. And
so how do you go about creating consent in non-swinger situations? Do you have any, what is your, I almost want to call it consent game, but it's more like, everybody has the questions that they ask. Like one of the golden questions that I found that was really useful is, where do you not want me to touch you, or where do you not want rope to go? Like when I found that phrasing, that worked really well. What are your, aside from the general, the questions that everybody asks, are there anything in specific that you use when you're creating consent with a partner?
Are we talking about specifically for rope? Or
otherwise,
Okay. Well, for tying, I almost always tie people clothed, which frankly just makes things a lot easier on so many different levels. There's pretty much no chance anything's going to accidentally slip into anywhere at that point.
Okay.
There's a
That's
level.
a good point.
Yeah, there's a level of comfortability, especially for people with body image issues. If there are any pictures taken, they can get posted places that they wouldn't normally if the person was naked. And I try to be very specifically, all we're doing is rope. If anything else is going to happen, then that can be negotiated separately.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had cases where we'd be through, halfway through a rope scene and interest is expressed in doing other things. And it's always been, we're going to finish this scene. You can come back next week and we can talk about some of the other stuff. But for now, this is what we're going to do. I try to go complete with, I'm trying to think of how to put this. It's all opt-in consent. If somebody wants to do something, I try to make sure that it's specifically stated, we're going to do these things over the course of a scene. And this is for rope and impact or sexual play or, pretty much any other scene that we'd be interested in doing. Especially starting out, as I get partners that I've had multiple scenes with and we get more comfortable with each other and there are established consents, I'll still check to see if they want to do something specific, especially if it's a little intense. But at that point, it's just making sure that I maintain the hard limits and keep it within the boundaries of things that we've already been doing and are comfortable with.
Gotcha. So what are you looking to get out of a rope scene? I mean, what is your motivation behind doing the rope?
A lot of times it's a lot of the rope I've been doing lately has been for photography.
Okay.
So I'm trying to make sure.
Do you do the photography too, or do you work with a photographer?
I've started. And, I'm sure you're familiar with this. Trying to get both a rigger, a model, and a photographer all together at the same time can be lots of fun on the scheduling front. So,
which is a great excuse to get into self-tying with a remote. Not that that's any easier. I have mad respect for those people who do that, but at least they don't have to worry about scheduling issues.
right. I'm not quite to the self-tying point yet, but I'm probably going to start doing that here soon. I was doing photography like while I was growing up, old black and white stuff. I had a beat up Pentax Cam 1000. Really enjoyed it. Had a lot of fun with it. Hadn't done any in a long time. I've got a couple of great, amazing photography mentors here in the city that I talk to regularly, that go over my stuff, give me feedback on things pretty regularly. An ex of mine gave me a hand-me-down old Nikon D60 like about a year or so ago, and I started figuring out how to make it work.
So unfortunately, you have just jumped into the pool of the people who will tell you, Nikon, good God, man, go to Canon. And the people are going like, yeah, Nikon all the way, fuck those Canon guys. Yeah, so yeah. I'm sorry, but you just stepped into it, just so you're aware.
If another ex of mine wants to give me a Canon DSLR, I'd be happy to take one. In the meantime, I'm going to work with what I got.
Right.
So I think I've spent like $100 on the entire kit right now, and that was to get one different lens. So I got the body, a couple of lenses, a flash, put a light kit together with a bunch of can lights from Walmart.
Well, hey, at least now that you're doing photography, you'll have a hobby that's not as expensive as rope.
Right. I make my own rope, so that's not even that expensive for me.
Except come on, your time and I'm. How long is your rope walk? How long do you have in your?
It's only like 35 feet.
Oh, okay. So see, there you have a space that's 35 feet that's dedicated to that, and yeah.
There's a lot of walking. There's a parking lot across the street from my house. So one of these days, I'm probably going to get a few friends together and some sticks, and I'm just going to run it all the way, like from my backyard, all the way across the street to the other end of the parking lot, and see like just how long a piece of rope I can make. But like if cars come by, it'll be like playing street hockey back when I was a kid. But yeah.
Oh boy, how did you get into the making of it? The side of things.
So there was a rope maker here in town. He had a series of life situations happen and couldn't make it anymore. And his ex ended up with all his equipment and materials and stuff and like a bunch of product. And I wanted to get a spinner and some thread, and just to see if I could figure out how to make it. And then when I left there, I had my entire 4-door mid-sized pickup truck full of everything that she had to make rope with somehow. And, I got it home, set it up. I spent probably about 9 months just getting the hang of getting the rope to actually work. And over the course of that, there was at least 3 times it all almost ended up on the fire pit. And it was just it was like a challenge. I wanted to see if it was something that I could do. It turned out that I got the hang of it and started making some like pretty decent stuff. And then I figured, well, hell, if I'm making rope here locally, nobody else is, I may as well start selling it. and
there it went.
Yeah, it kind of like took off from there. So I'm in my 2nd year now of actually like being out there and, vending at all the local events, trying to market through like Instagram and FetLife. Right now I'm in the process of getting the Etsy page put up, doing all the product photography for that. Website started. We're trying to find a host right now in payment processing and stuff. And that's always fun if it's kink related.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that. That's true.
Yep. So, but the Etsy should be up and running here like within the next couple of weeks.
So
yeah,
I'm going to put you on the spot here because I happen to have in my hand the sample you got delivered to me. I was at Ropecraft, and suddenly this person ran up to me, Treyu came up to me and handed me a bag. And my first thought was, no. The presenters are supposed to get gift bags, not me. I mean, I'm the director here. But it turned out that it was a clever marketing scheme by you to put rope and other kinds of swag into the hands of people. So I got about a 2-foot length of rope here that I have done 3 caradas and 2 suspensions with so far, and it's held up well.
What?
No, not really. I'm just making that up. It has, to be honest, it has up until just now, it has been hanging on my shelf, holding up my dirty yoga button that I got there. So, but I'm looking at it, and I'm gonna actually give you a little hands-on critique here as I'm looking at it. Follow along at home. So one of the things about it that I really like is that it's a nice tight weave. It's not a loose weave. And I know I'm sometimes the minority here. When Moko and I were talking about rope, he's like, "You really want it that much?" It's also it feels like it's slightly thicker than the general. A lot of the jute that I see here. This is a jute piece that you sent me, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, jute's what I'm working with right now.
Yeah. So is this 2-strand or
3?
3-strand. Okay, so it's 3-strand jute, right? And so it's got a nice tight weave to it. I'm not sure how you process it, but it's a little bit rougher than Sunday, which is not a bad thing. Okay. I always say the best way, unlike you, I tend to enjoy and prefer tying on skin. And I always say the best way to condition your rope is with the sweat of your partner. And literally, I do like the way that rope does get conditioned by use, both running through my hands and through skin. So
totally.
It feels like it. Do you want to comment on how you treat this? Obviously, you don't have to give away any trade secrets, but just so people know what ingredients are used and things.
Right. So on the rope that I make for production, because I'll spec order stuff both for myself. Like I made a new kit for Treyu to take to Ropecraft with him. That's how we got all the sample packs too. Because he asked me for cards to hand out, and I was like, "Well, I've got these bags here," and it seems to have worked out really well. So it's pretty much just I do a friction burn and a light coat of mineral oil.
Okay.
So it's enough that you can use it, just right out the gate if you want. And also you can put whatever you want on that and it'll work just fine. It won't react poorly with what treatment it's already had. Cause I've got, a friend of mine in Tucson's actually working on some wax stuff for me. I should be getting that here this week. Cause I've been getting requests for that too. And
yeah. A lot of people like the beeswax kind of thing on it.
Yep. Yeah. So it's nothing I'm not doing anything special with it. Run it through the process real quick. Throw it in the oven for 10, 12 minutes. Just to get it to seep in a little. But it definitely still needs some form of treatment once it's delivered. Either by use or, some additional oil, wax, or something.
The ends that you sent me were just tied in overhand knots, which happens to be my preferred way to do it, just mainly because I'm lazy. Is that the way you generally finish your ends, or do you whip them or tie what are they called? Acorn knots? I don't know.
There's
thistle knots.
Yeah. For production, it's just an overhand knot. I had carpal tunnel, severe carpal tunnel.
Oh.
Yeah, which was a lot of fun. I've had surgery on one hand, got cortisone on the other hand, been through all the physical therapy and everything. So, I don't want to be doing that much fine detail work with my hands.
Yep.
So it's
Yeah,
just overhead knot.
I can tell you again. Seeing during a rush time, seeing Monk working with the whipping ends on things, that is a level of precision and craftsman's agony that I would not want anyone to go through.
Yeah.
Cool. And what lengths do you normally put? I mean, I'm guessing custom, but do you have a standard length that you prefer?
Yeah, just 8 meters.
Okay.
Yeah. I just make everything 6 millimeter by 8 meter. I can do 4 millimeter through 8 millimeter, and up to like 32 feet with the setup that I have currently.
I will tell you that there's definitely a market and a demand for 4 millimeter, like 15 foot, 8 foot kind of things for genital bondage.
Oh yeah, I do. I do a 4 millimeter conductive. I sell in 5 foot pieces, and
nice.
I cannot keep those in stock.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
That's wow.
Yeah, that go over really well, especially for CBT.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can actually almost hear some of my listeners like rubbing their hands together in glee at the thought of that. Cool. So this is jute. Do you use any other? You said conductive. Any other exotic materials or non-exotic materials?
Just the metallic thread and the conductive. And that's it. Yeah, just working with jute. I've had other people asking me about like working with either hemp or doing like cotton or coconut or something like that. And like that might be something I do in the future. But for now, I'm working on getting all my dyed rope dialed in, maintaining the quality and consistency on the jute rope. And I also I make paddles and bondage furniture and stuff like the paddles.
Oh, so you're basically you're a kinky maker in general.
Trying to be.
Yeah.
So it's more like trying to get the current product line like dialed in and kind of set up for long term, and then maybe in a year or so I'll start looking at like different materials and whatnot. So yeah, but it's just me here at the house with my dog making all this stuff. So I'm trying to keep it relatively simple.
So that's a perfect segue. Speaking of simple, one of the things that first kind of made me go, on your thing was I don't think you're the first time I've seen someone's for about me be immediately followed by about Taoism. And that's kind of an unusual thing. So tell me how does Taoist inform your kink? Taoism. Well, you should probably let's first say, can you explain to my listeners who might not be aware of it what Taoism is, at least for you, and how it informs your kink?
So it's very much about balance and being part of the whole. I'm trying. It's been around. No pressure.
Just define this multi-millennial old religion and tell how it informs your personal life.
Yeah.
No pressure at all.
It's only been around for about 3,500 years, and there's 500 different variants on it. So all the Zen Buddhists that are really happy with how their thing goes, all the best stuff came from Taoism. If that helps.
This is true. As a practicing Soto Zen Buddhist, I heartily agree with that.
Thanks. So it's very much the awareness of everything being connected, me being a very small part of everything being connected, that there's a balance to the universe, and that my goal is to maintain my right size within that balance and to go be aware of the flow of things and how to best align myself to that flow and to continue moving within it.
So let's see, what is it that the prevailing thing of if it's becoming more centered in yourself and your role in the universe, what you're saying is becoming more self-centered. And um, no, I actually I totally stole that because I watched The Tick last night. But um, the that's actually, in all seriousness, that's a very different philosophy. You know, the idea of going with the figuring out the flow and your part in it. That's a very different kind of a philosophy than the as the top, as the rigger, you have to have complete control over everything and know exactly how things are going to happen and be able to mitigate anything else that goes on. I mean, that's a very different message. How do you reconcile that?
Well, I still have to do that, but if I need to be flexible enough, I need to be in that moment enough, I need to be aware of how I am interacting with my bottom, how the bottom's responding to things. And if the flow of a scene is where it's supposed to be, which isn't something that I'm going to necessarily determine. It's going to be how the interaction's going, how the vibe's going, how that energy exchange is. Mm-hmm. Then being able to direct that within the confines of that experience, that's still doing my job as a top. But okay. I can't sit there and go, we're going to do this for 3 minutes, and then we're going to move to this position, and then we're going to move to this. Like I've done.
And yet I know people who do exactly that.
Yeah. It's and really there's nothing wrong with that if that's what works for them. Like I've done like demos and performances that involve like 5 or 6 transitions. Sometimes, you know, that flow isn't going to be like what we discussed and planned ahead of time. So I'm going to have to make that change, and I have to be there for it. I can't force things to happen, especially when I'm working with rope. You know, when you start forcing things, bad things happen.
Right. And I think that it is much more important to develop a capacity to deal with the unexpected than it is to have everything go as planned. I often say, you know, the most dangerous rigger is the one who's never had anything go wrong.
That was me for a long time.
Yeah, because well, I mean, if you know that you've been lucky, that's one thing. But if you've never had anything go wrong and you're convinced that this is entirely because of your own ability, then when that unexpected thing happens, not only do you not know how to react to it, you also start to internalize, well, since I'm the one who made everything go right, if things are going wrong, it must be my fault. Oh my God, crisis of, you know, confidence, et cetera, et cetera. So I actually enjoy, you know, I mean, I teach a version of it. There's a Stefanos and Shea teaches a version of it. Jake Wing teaches a version of it. There are others who sort of teach a, you know, when shit goes wrong kind of things. Master So-and-so did a class, a rope in space once, where he put all kinds of rope on himself, like tied it, and it was a really interesting mishmash of ties. And the entire session was, hey, come on up here with your cutting tool and feel what it feels like to actually cut rope off. Like, what does it actually feel like? And I think that's something that we don't do enough of in our education, my opinion of it anyway. Because when you look at the way that people who are in high risk situations, who can't, like, we can't train in actual danger, right? We don't want to put our bottoms in actual danger.
A stint in the Army will help with that.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing: if you look at the Army, you know, I was a Marine, and I was gonna get to the question of the Army. I did research on things like firefighters or EMTs and things like that. And what they do is they put people in controlled but highly stressful or pressured situations, and then go over the procedures that you would use in that situation, so that when you're actually in a high stress situation, you automatically do it. You automatically have this protocol in place.
Yeah, it's like muscle memory.
Right, exactly. Rope. So, yeah, I appreciate that. So you were a Taoist and in the Army, huh? I did catch the bit about hiking on your profile as well. which as a Marine Corps infantryman, I heartily endorse as well.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. People are so hyped up on hiking out here, and it's like, okay, guys, you have fun with that.
yeah, I've done my hiking, exactly.
When I was in, I was very much more, if there was any label to firmly attach to me during my stint in the Army, it would be drunk, unless it's field. So,
okay.
Yeah.
That's a valid strategy for a man dealing with the armed forces. I can see that.
Yeah. Like it didn't.
Many times I
didn't
wish I
really
had
come into play too much.
Gotcha.
But
how did you get into? I mean, which came first, the kink or the Taoism?
The Taoism.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely that kicked in. I got introduced to the concept like when I was in my teens. And started at the time, my mom was a hippie. So like, you know, I mean, she introduced me to the idea of meditation before I was even 10, I think. So found out about Taoism when I was in my teens, started looking into that. I want to put like heavy air quotes around practicing what I could, because it's not that widespread or popular here in America. Like the closest retreat that I could attend is in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there's nothing in the state of Arizona that I can go to and like connect with other people, you know, or find somebody to actively like follow and learn from. And that was when I first started with it. And then I discovered alcohol and marijuana and kind of went off to the races with that. And so like everything just kind of went to the side for a while.
It's also a valid thing, you know?
Yeah, you know, it happens. But yeah, I do the best I can with what I can do on my own and try to be aware of my limitations and like, I'm only going to be able to learn and or do so much.
So you know, are in touch with the community of things, and you are you also teach rope and stuff like that. What is one thing that you know, you wish that you know, if you could talk to the entire rope community and say, here's one thing that you really should know about that has really helped me, you know, in my rope, or that you think would help them, what would that be?
None of us are that special.
None of us are that special.
Yeah.
You're accepting me, right? I mean,
nope. Well, I don't know. You've done pretty good so far. It's you get in, and I have an ego. I have an ego that feeds on stuff. It's real easy for me to buy my own bullshit. I have people around me that help me to not do that. But it's just, especially with rope being one of the flashier, more public things, it's real easy to, you know, to drink your own Kool-Aid.
Yep. Yeah. I used to say, if I start believing my own publicity, then I'm gone. I've lost it.
Right. And like, I kind of joke, even though it's nothing to joke about. It's like, I'm a cis heteronormative white male, middle-aged rope top instructor, you know, group.
You put it that way, you're right. There is nothing special about either of us.
You know, and it's like, that's a pretty like widespread thing to have. You've got at least 2 or 3 of those in every scene in the country. And, you know, it's just trying to realize that like, I'm just another guy that like does rope. You know, if I wasn't doing what I was doing, somebody else would be able to step into that space, hopefully.
So let's unpack that a little bit, though, because one of the things, and you can feel free to disagree with me on this. I mean, I'm going to put out an idea, and you can say I agree or I disagree, and I won't think less of you either way. As someone who has kind of gotten the ride of the cishet white male rope top, you know, pretty much top to bottom here. I sort of look at now my, at first I thought my place was to get out of the way and make a space for people who did not were not like me, but who should get a chance to enjoy that kind of privilege. You use the right word, I think. And what I realized is that that's actually not the job. The job is to try and create an environment where other people can be nurtured into whatever their rope journey looks like. So it's not to give people the same rope journey that I had, because that was something that I got in it. And it was also predicated on some pretty shitty cultural practices, that are still, some are still in place and some of which are making some progress. But it's rather to help other people find their own rope journeys and create an environment that is nurturing for them. So that, and that all sounds very lovely and hoity-toity and stuff like that. Practically, that's a job and a half. It's hard to find ways to do that, especially since as a cishet presenting white male, I'm not necessarily aware of what is needed. So part of it, the easy answer is listen to the people who you're trying to help, elevate and amplify their voices. That's the easy part. So my first question, two-part question. One, do you see that is an important role? And if so, then what, aside from just listening, what are some ways that we can, you and me as that representative sector, can do that? Okay.
That is very important because, good example, the whole tying outside thing and having cops or security guards approach me, ask what's going on. I am well aware that if I was black or brown and doing that in public, the outcome of that interaction would have been incredibly different.
Yeah, definitely has potential to be literally deadly.
Right. I need to
especially in Arizona.
Yeah, especially here. At that level, I think is pretty similar all over the country. It just gets reported more in some areas.
That's actually a very, very good point. Thank you for correcting me on that.
But what I can do, so the non-binary, gender fluid rope top is never going to have the same experience that I had, nor am I going to be able to enable them to have that experience. But what I can
probably don't want it.
Right. If they could have the level of privilege that I've had, they'd probably actually kind of enjoy it for a minute. It'd be a nice change of pace. What I can do is I can do things like when I'm teaching rope classes, I can make sure to include the variants on the different ties for different types, for different genders, for different sizes. My TK class or my chest harness class is specifically geared for non-traditional uses of that structure for people that don't have the flexibility, have different sizes, so that way you can still get a box tie without it having to be very specifically for this body type or frame size.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, and you can gear things towards that so that they are more accessible. So it doesn't have to be a 110-pound gymnast, getting the ties. So the rope is accessible to everybody. You just got to change up a couple of things. It's not even that hard, I don't think. I can make sure that the events that I host are open and welcoming and non-discriminatory as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. And using language, and that is a big part of it.
Right. I refer to my event. We do an open rope night once a month here, and it's just an open rope jam. Everybody just comes, throws rope, suspensions, floor work. Come with a partner, find a partner there, whatever. It's just wide open, and I try to emphasize the open aspect of it. We don't care what style of rope you're doing. We don't care what your body type is. We don't care how you present. Just as long as everybody's safe, and all scenes are, agreed upon, come in and knock yourself out. And then I'll try to make a point to, go around and check on everybody and chat people up and say hi. And we get Like at our last event, we had over 40 people, and half of those were brand new. It was the first event that they had ever been to. Yeah, had never been to like any kind of kink event. And all of them really, really liked the vibe, the space, how everything felt, how much fun they had. And, all it is just opening the doors and making sure that everybody gets the same level of, hey, welcome to the show. Come on in. If you get any questions, feel free to ask. How's everything going?
Gotcha. Being a good host.
Yeah. It doesn't, I want to say it doesn't take much, but I've also been doing that specific event off and on for the last 6 years now. So I'm kind of used to it.
Yeah, it may not take much, but it also is it does take something.
Right. Yeah. And it took a while to get to the point where it's this easy now.
Yeah. Right. All right. Well, we are almost out of time, so it's time for me to do the lightning questions here. And they're just kind of getting to know you kind of questions like, hey, what's your, you already mentioned beer. What's your beverage of choice?
Coffee.
Oh, you gotta be more specific. Are we talking single origin, that kind of stuff? Or are we talking Folgers?
Folgers. I started on Army coffee. I'm pretty sure.
I was going to say you're in the Army, so yeah.
Yeah, so Folgers is great. I get some of the single origin from Ecuador, raised by Pablo kind of stuff occasionally when I'm feeling fancy, but for the most part, just coffee. It's good.
Coffee flavored coffee, as they say. Yep. Okay. And what's your favorite meal? What if you could have anything you want for dinner? What would you have?
Usually pasta.
So, okay.
Yeah.
If I said to you, "Hey, I'm about to go on a trip. I'm looking for a good book. What would you recommend I read?"
The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck.
I'm gonna write that down. Road by who?
M. Scott Peck. Don't read anything else he's written because after that book came out, he did this really super hard right turn into fundamentalist Christianity. It's weird. But the first book's really good. Okay,
gotcha. All right, and same thing for a movie or TV show. Hey, I'm looking for something to. I need to relax. I need to, get something interesting. What would you recommend I watch?
Oh my God, I just read it. Or watched it. I can't remember the name of the show. It's killing me. It's on Amazon. There's 3 seasons. It's set.
Describe it. What is it about?
It's science fiction. It's set in Mars. They find a gateway. It's based on a book series. I can't remember the name of the show. This is killing me.
I feel like I should know this, and I isn't that the theme to the Arnold Schwarzenegger Total Recall? But
there's a couple of small similarities to that, but it's
okay. Something on Amazon with art. I'm sure we will find out. And 3 seasons. That's promising. You're not talking about The Expanse, are you?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, in that case, I will throw right back at you. If you like The Expanse, the series, you will like Expanse, the books.
I've heard really good stuff about them. Yes.
Yeah. My favorite character on The Expanse is now I'm blanking on his name. The mechanic guy who's really tough. Yeah, him. Yeah. You get he's more of that character in the books.
Okay.
Laugh out loud.
Have character development in the books though, because the series didn't really seem to have a whole lot of.
Yes, very, very much actually.
Okay, good.
In fact, the characters spend a lot of time talking about how they're evolving. So, yeah. Okay, so let's get into more kinky stuff. What's something that you have in your toy bag that would surprise people?
A pry bar.
A pry bar?
Yeah.
What size are we talking here?
It's about 2 feet long. It's about an inch thick.
Just couldn't find a speculum? I'm confused.
Huh?
Just couldn't find a speculum or what?
No. Had an ex who was really into super heavy impact up to including being able to orgasm from heavy impact. And, well, obviously the heavier the better. So that one usually scares people when they see it.
Gotcha. Okay, that works.
Yeah.
So I have a magic wand, and I can wave my magic wand and make anybody real or fictional, past, present, or future, appear, and they want to play with you. So my question is, who do you want me to make manifest, and what do you want to do with them? You don't have to answer the second part. You can just say the first part. But if you want to answer the second part, that's always interesting too.
Huh. I honestly can't think of anybody. If you were just going to make somebody appear for me to hang out with, I'd say Feynman.
Who? Feynman?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. That's fair.
But like the only scene I could think of doing with him would be playing bongos for like 6 hours. Let's see. Yeah, I honestly can't think of anybody.
So actually, Richard Feynman did a series where he had like images that represented different types of, I guess, physics reactions.
Yeah.
And they were on a wall. And I looked at those and I went, I bet you could do those in rope, like have those in rope on a body. So
yeah. Well, that was I think his novel was for. It had to do with how water like drains, like physical or the actual physics behind how the molecules interact in water transitioning from like one place to the next or something like that. I'm trying.
I never realized that. Huh.
This stuff. Yeah.
So the last lightning question is, what is your favorite dirty word? Like what? Now, when I say dirty word, I got to clarify this. I'm not talking about exclamation or insult. I'm talking about the word that you look at and goes, yeah, that turns me on.
Cunt.
Cunt. And there's a solid and very shared word among many people. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, people are a little sensitive about it, I think. Mm-hmm. One of the girls I'm dating right now actually refers to her vagina as her cunt, and it's just the best thing ever.
I found it interesting. I was dating two people, and one of them wanted to refer it as a pussy and never referred to it as a cunt, and the other one never referred to it as a pussy and only wanted to refer to it as a cunt, which I think is interesting because I get to say the same thing. I'm like, hey, it's a cock. It's not junk. It's not a dick. It's not any of the words that are used to denigrate things. So, All right. Well, cool. And where can people find your stuff now that we've talked it up and they want to know more about you?
It's PHX42 on FetLife.
Mm-hmm.
And then Phoenix42 Creations. Phoenix, the 42 is just the numbers 4 and 2 Creations on Instagram. And
gotcha.
Yep. And those are the only two active social media that I have right now. I'm figuring by the end of the summer at the latest, I'll have like the website and Etsy and probably a Twitter and stuff going too. But yep.
All right.
That's where I'm at right now.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And then direct contact information, email and phone number for the business, I think you have on the cards.
Yep, I do. And I will try and list those in the show notes. And I see, at least based on your website, you're going to be at Rope in the Rockies in September.
I should just be attending that.
Okay. So if people want to wave hi,
right.
They can do that.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be bringing stuff and cards with me, but I just want to attend that. I haven't had a chance to make it to a rope conference since Restrained wrapped up. So
gotcha. We are definitely fingers crossed that we'll have you at Ropecraft in October.
Yes.
So. All right,
I'm just
great.
going to figure out how to make it happen, but it's going to happen.
I hear you. That's always what I say too. Yep. All right. Thanks a lot for your time.
Yeah, thanks for chatting me up. I appreciate it.